Hello, everybody. Hello, LinkedIn Live. Hello, Mark M. Tower. Everybody, I'm excited. I have Mark M. Tower with me. I'll let him speak in a second. I know everybody wants to hear him and not me. I'm Zev Wexler. I'm the CEO of Wexler Marketing Environment. I'm an expert in digital marketing and I'm an expert in AI and blockchain. We're going to talk today about AI with government, GovCons, and we have probably the best person I could choose for that. Mark M. Tower, welcome to the live. You're actually going to wear the hat of the interviewer today, which I'm excited about. Welcome to our live, and please take it away.
All right, good thing I'm the interviewer because I am certainly not the techie. Thanks, Z, for inviting me to be part of this today. I've been focused on the federal market since I opened my company in 1985, advising companies on various aspects of marketing to the government. I'm in my 18th year on the Federal News Network, formerly Federal News Radio, with my show Amtower Off Center. I've been writing for Washington Technology, a contributor there for 16 years. I speak at various public and private events every year. And I have several books out on the market. But my day job is consulting with companies on what works in marketing. But in my 40 years in government contracting, there have only been three real market altering paradigm shifts which have caused radical change in our behavior. The first was the launch of the World Wide Web and the advent of email. Think Netscape in 1985. The second was the introduction of Web 2.0 tools like blogs, wikis, video sharing, and social networks in the late 90s and early 2000s. The third was the introduction of LinkedIn in 2003 as the first platform exclusively for business social networking. The fourth paradigm shift is really a tectonic shift, and it's occurring now, and it's been occurring since 1950 when Alan Turing published his work, Computer Machinery and Intelligence, which introduced the concept of machine intelligence. Shortly thereafter, the term artificial intelligence was coined. So the fourth paradigm shift is the arrival of generative AI, which is what we're here to discuss today.
Absolutely. People don't know this. People think that AI is like a new thing ever since OpenAI came out. People are not aware that AI has been in the works for 70 plus years now, and it's been worked on by so many different facets and so many different ways. And we're getting the fruits right now. But AI is not a new technology by any stretch of the imagination. The use cases that we have now are extremely exciting, but AI is not new. Now, tell us a little bit, Mark. You know, you've been in this business for a very, very long time. How do you see government,
Yeah, a few weeks.
couple of weeks? Um, I love your sense of humor. How does government change with AI? How does GovCons change with AI? And what is the challenges you see?
Here's something very strange for me. I'm not a technologist, but I keep my finger on the pulse of our market. Since January, I've had no fewer than 12 to 15 companies approach me with various AI tools, usually around the RFP process. And I'm not the one to evaluate these. Some look better than others. Some are seem to be purely driven with private equity or venture money because the government market is huge. But when I vet the people who are launching these things, they don't have a background in GovCon, and that is key number one. If your platform is built by somebody outside of our market, I don't care how good you are at data analytics. If you're not, or AI, if you're not embedded in this market, your development of tools is going to fall short. So that's a telltale sign. But in the mid-teens, I was teaching graduate school at George Washington University, and AI and machine learning started to come. I mean, they've been there for a while, but they started to rise in visibility, getting on the radar. So I was having my students research those 10 years ago. but it's one of those things where it's permeated our market, and some people get it, and a lot of people are sitting there scratching their heads, going, "Well, how do I use this? Which bus should I get on? Where do I invest?" And a lot of the money, and smaller companies shouldn't be making decisions like this on the fly. Medium-sized companies either. Larger companies are, they probably have some internal bandwidth on these topics, but it's the Wild West again.
It is. I love that you say that. That's such a great analogy. So AI is the new shiny thing, right? Everybody's talking about AI. Everybody is, AI is the new shiny thing. But the leadership of GovCon doesn't really understand AI, and the companies that are making these AI doesn't really understand GovCon. So there's a big gap here in the market. And I feel the problem is people are thinking AI is a magic wand, and they're trying to do too much with an AI. To me, an AI is not a 0 to 100 solution. It never will be. Okay. AI can supercharge something you already do well. AI can take you 10x in a process that you already know that you do it in a way that works in the market. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, you go on to LinkedIn now, you write an introductory message, and LinkedIn says, "Do you want me to rewrite this with AI?" It's everywhere. And do I want my stuff rewritten? Not yet.
I
Thank
completely.
you, Max.
So we have a question here from Eileen Kent. AI with no government experience and understanding of the market. I found that too when reviewing AI tools. Right on, Mark. So it seems like the market really agrees with you. So there's a gap here. And the way to close this gap is to basically work with people that understand the process of GovCons and what they bring in. Now, we have another treat for everybody, Mark. We're going to bring in Alex George. Alex, thank you for joining us. Let's bring Alex on live with us.
Hey, thanks,
Hello,
Z.
Alex.
Thanks, Mark.
How are
You
you?
Hey,
guys.
brother. Alex and I don't think we've ever met in person, but we met on LinkedIn about, I don't know, 17, 18 years ago now.
Long time ago. Yeah, we are the early adopters, I suppose. And so back in the day, I started this GovCon Connect group, which is kind of what brought us together here so that we can, reach a wider audience who would be interested in this podcast. I'll call it a podcast. Is there a better term? So here we are. Topic is AI and GovCon, and I guess I'll do a brief introduction. As I mentioned, I know Mark for a long time. Been in a GovCon business for a while too, as a small business owner and consultant. Cybersecurity being the specialty, and then of course the GovCon Connect group on LinkedIn is something I do on the side as a hobby. At a high level, my interest in AI is kind of twofold. One is obviously a more efficient, capture process, more efficient response to proposals, and all that good stuff, which I think is the primary focus of this discussion. But then also how to implement AI in government, and with that, obviously having compliance security in mind. How do you do that securely? And to Mark's and Z's point, how do you share the knowledge? How do you make folks understand what AI is all about? And not just AI, but how it applies to them. Large language models versus smaller ones, verticals within that. There are all kinds of different topics that there is a lot. There are a lot of posts in the LinkedIn group and LinkedIn in general around AI, and it looks like it's everywhere. But in my opinion, I don't think that most of those products or advertisements are really don't have enough substance really at this point. And I could be wrong in a couple of cases, but that's kind of my take. And I'll take it. I'll give it back to you guys.
I'll take it from here for a sec. So, overall, Zev, implications for GovCons. What does this mean to people in business to government versus industry?
That's a great question, Mark. So basically, there's a new technology in town. There's a technology that allows us to do things much more efficiently, much quicker. The problem is a lot of companies are trying to make full solutions from AI. They're trying to sell you everything under AI. AI is the solution for everything. What we've learned, and I'll bring in Daniel here soon to talk about it, but what we've learned is nothing off the shelves works. And if you're trying to put too many things under an AI, you're going to fail. Another thing that we've learned is government cannot use open AI, cannot use the open sources, because then you lose your IP basically. So you lose your data in this. So what governments need to do right now is stop thinking about AI as a shiny new object, but start thinking about how AI can improve the efficiencies of what is working right now. There's a lot of things in government that don't work. There's a lot of things that we need to improve. AI will only help on things that are already working. I hope this makes sense to you, Mark, and to you, Alex. Another thing I want to bring in is there's a lot of young people that are doing AI. Those young people understand technology and AI excites them, but they don't understand business. They don't understand building relationships. They don't understand how this works, especially not in GovCon. So I like to work with people that are, a little bit more mature, that had experience in the market, that have done business, that have experience for the last 20, 15 years, and now they can use that with AI, with the technology. So the gap that I see is you're either technology or process. But what needs to happen for government and for GovCon is those two together. And that will only work when, like you said, Mark, somebody actually understands the business you're going in. You can't solve the problem if you don't understand the parameters. Does that make sense?
It sounds like you're talking about specific use cases, right, that need to be well defined, right, to see what fits where, and then where it makes sense, maybe bundling of those use cases. But it needs to be specific, and to your point, that's the only way you're really going to get a good ROI for your time and investment if you decide to go the AI route, or I shouldn't say if, but when. Um,
So, Mark, we have another question from Eileen. I'll let you answer that or comment to that, because I think this is something the market wants to know.
The which one from Eileen? Too many things under AI are going to fail. Yes. It not only is this a relationship driven business in GovCon. It always has been and it always will be. But the other thing you have to remember is that the government moves in I call it glacial. There's not going to be rapid movement inside the federal government on this, and consequently, the regulations impeding feds from using AI are going to be in place for a while until they figure out where and how it can be used safely and to the agency's advantage. So I don't know if that answered Eileen's question or not.
Let me share the question on the screen again.
Selling to people, yeah. Eileen, you know this is a relationship market. You and I have had a relationship for I don't know how many years now, a long time.
About 10, I think.
Well, Eileen and I have been around a little longer than that, but it evolves into a security issue for contractors and for government, and that brings Alex back into the conversation in a big way, because Alex, I met you when I think not long after you'd started your company, I think, but you've been focusing on computer security, network security for ages. What is the big thing here when you're using ChatGPT? How does that impact security?
Well, most agencies have a very limited approved use of GPT or anything AI related. I think one of you mentioned that regulations around AI are still kind of emerging. There's been there is some hearings in Congress, different folks, the OpenAI CEO and others, kind of helping draft that future legislation and those rules. But as far as specific guidelines that would come from NIST, for instance, or having any other official CISA driven or OMB driven regulations that folks in government agencies can follow, I don't think it's getting to that point yet. A lot of people are working behind the scenes, but I'm still to see concrete steps taken or rules being put out there, or memos, other than kind of high level. And because that's really going to be the driver of how you implement AI in government. And so it's sort of TBD. Most folks that are involved with this understand how AI works. Maybe not all the details associated with it, including myself, but the fact that we're talking about language models and they need to be secured, how that data moves, it needs to be secure, and whatever emerges is going to have to be centered around it, and of course avoiding any manipulation with those language models, again depending, to Zeeb's point, depending on a use case, because even within government there are going to be very different use cases of how AI is leveraged. So it's very exciting and interesting times in that realm that will be coming faster than anybody expected. And not to mention the fact that in the AI world, there's something new literally every week. And so if someone was to write a regulation or a set of standards based on what we know today, 6 months from now or even 3, some of that may be obsolete. So that is a big challenge as well.
Yeah, I want to comment on 2 of the comments that have been posted. Sherry Asensio from Zscaler says leaders and innovators always have the burden of education, and she talks about Zscalers constantly meeting with government. They have a showcase page for their education portal. So leaders and innovators always have the burden of education. But Ricky Henschel brings up the point that, we can't write off the younger people because, these are tech savvy people. You may not believe it, but I'm not a digital native. Yeah, hard to believe, right, Zev?
Very hard to believe.
But
I am not either, funny enough, Mark. I'm more on your boat.
But Ricky points out that the younger people have a more unique way, I think, of communicating. They're more tech savvy, so they probably delved heavily into AI. And there's a lot of young people in government that may not be being listened to right now, and they need to have a voice migrating upstream in their agencies regarding how this can be used and how it can be used safely.
So this is the best opportunity. Ricky, you're so right. And we need these young people, but we need to collaborate and we need to teach them what we know and they need to teach us what they know. So without further ado, let's bring one of those young, brilliant people. We're going to add Daniel into the interview. Mark, I'm going to bring up Daniel for you.
Fire away.
Hello, Daniel.
Well, hello. How's it going? Good to see everybody here. And man, what a pleasure. Mark, just an absolute GovCon legend. Alex, it's I think we met a couple months ago, man, and it's absolutely a pleasure to be here with you on a live. And Zev, of course, always fantastic hopping on with you.
I miss you from New York, man. We just saw each other in New York, and I now miss Daniel.
Yeah, the Daniel's office is typical New York apartment background. A lot of knotty pine there.
Absolutely. You can see the subway out back.
Yeah, there you go. So, Daniel, let's talk about the advances and the challenges here. So, as we've discussed a couple of times, there's been a lot of off-the-shelf programs introduced into our market, and they're bouncing off, various people in the market right now, being vetted or tossed or adopted, whatever. What is the significance of the off-the-shelf things versus building a custom internal AI platform?
Man, that is that is a really good question, and I think like you, similarly me, in my inbox alone, I have at least 50 new offers for AI tools. Not to mention, the meetings we have, and so I think there is that bombardment. And when it comes to custom versus off the shelf, and what that means, there's a lot of nuance there. I find a lot of people will throw around the term AI. Some see it as a buzzword or maybe a red flag. But really what it boils down to, specifically in application to GovCon, there's two main factors when it comes to off the shelf versus custom. And the first one would be security. And Alex, maybe you could speak to that. I know you've got a robust set of experience in that field. But security, and then also output or results. In using any off-the-shelf tool or open AI, it just brings in a myriad of security issues, risks, compliance, and all sorts of problems. And you don't always know what's going on the back end. You could have a great, tight user interface that is really sharp, but then on the back end, everything's getting dumped into open source. And so it's really important to be aware of security. And the second thing is the actual output that you're getting. If you're using an off-the-shelf tool that has been designed amazingly and is great, whatever, it's a cookie cutter system and a cookie cutter tool. And so you're going to get cookie cutter results. Zev, you've harped on this point quite a bit, and rightly so. With AI, you get out what you put in. And so if you are putting in just cookie cutter, that's what you're going to get out. So for those two reasons, I think that's the big difference between off the shelf and custom is meeting security needs and really getting a detailed and nuanced result that is tailored specifically to your use case. So if I'm selling, tennis shoes on or sneakers on TikTok, an off-the-shelf tool is going to do just fine because I have no security needs, no compliance, and the results, it's fine for social media. But if I'm designing a missile or a power plant, for government, those things become very important.
Okay, there was a lengthy comment from Junid Khan on how to get regulations built intelligently around this. But I'll go back to what I said before. Right now, the regulations are being written probably by people less familiar with the use and implementation of AI tools, and they're going to be necessarily more cautious. The government's always more cautious. So I was, and I think I am on the board of the GovAI Summit. Big event last fall, first AI summit that I'm aware of exclusively for government. It drew from people literally around the world, and there were 50 plus presentations on all aspects of this. It seems like Europe is moving a little faster than the US, but they usually do in these situations. But there's a lot of ethical considerations, a lot of intellectual property considerations. So I want each of you to comment on that, please. Zev, take it.
Daniel, let's start with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is interesting to see the apprehension of people using AI, and rightly so, particularly with regulated spaces and such. I think the number one thing I would say is understanding what's under the hood is going to remove a lot of that apprehension. So, just for example, knowing how AI works. Not only its capabilities in drastically increasing efficiency, but also its limitations and like what you can't do with AI. If you try and do too much with it, you're just not gonna get good results. And so I think that's the main thing, is just knowledge, empowering people with knowledge how AI works, that it's not a magic stick that can do everything, but also that it only does what you want it to. and there's really not any risk as long as you take simple steps to contain it, to train it, to prime it. It does have great capacities, and those are the two main apprehensions I've found. As people think that it does everything and then they get disappointed and let it get out of hand, or people that don't appreciate its power and truly understand that it's just a tool. And Eileen, really glad that you could join us, and I think she mentioned that as well. It's simply a tool, and there is no replacement of humans. It's an empowering of efficiency on processes that already work.
So let me interject if you guys don't mind. I love working with you, Mark, because you have experience and you've seen things go in this market. And what I've learned from history, history may not all repeat, but it kind of rhymes. So I'll talk to you from my experience. Mark, do you remember pitching social media to GovCons and government officials? Do you remember how scared everybody was about that? Do you remember now who's not on social media? Who's not on LinkedIn? Okay, you and I have been in the trenches in the battle of trying to convince government to use new technology, and you and I both know how hard that is. But also, you and I both know that's inevitable. With your permission, Mark, can I share a screen here?
Yeah, fire away.
Everybody hopefully can see my screen. This is something that I want everybody to really take in. This is how we adopted the internet. Okay. So the internet rate of adoption was about 41%, and the internet reached 50 million users in 7 years. This is smartphone. Okay. Smartphone reached 50 million users in 4 years and is much faster. This is AI, ladies and gentlemen. So AI is adopting faster than any technology we've ever seen in the history of humanity. So I can tell you the same way that the internet took over, the same way that smartphones, and I can even be more secure that this is going to happen with AI. So to your question, Mark, basically, I think that right now, the most important thing is to educate and go through these barriers. And I think simple solutions are important. I think companies are failing when they're trying to do all-encompassing things. There are simple ways. The way Daniel and I work with Viacry is we start with building one agent solution and then another. And within no time, there's a swarm of agents that create things for you. And we equate AI like onboarding a person. It's not just like buying a software. It's not like opening another Gmail. You actually need to onboard, educate. So I'm a little long-winded here, but I hope that was a good answer. We've seen this before. We've seen how scared they are to adopt, but our job is to make that transition easier because it's inevitable.
Alex, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, there are a couple of things kind of going through my mind. One was the intellectual property and how that's going to play out. We're already seeing, lawsuits. I think it was New York Times suing OpenAI, and there's a lot more on that front, and a lot more will be taking place. And then, of course, you're going to have legal precedents, all of which is going to have impact on how this evolves, especially as large models. And then when you look at beyond that intellectual property piece, when you look at, again, use cases and which ones will ultimately fall in the bucket that absolutely require customization and custom agents and language models, privacy, security, of course, being a piece of it, and then how much of it is really going to be baked into SaaS offerings. I think Microsoft is the best example. They're very good at bundling, so it'll be interesting. Not to mention the investment in OpenAI, so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves, because some use cases for sure will be satisfied through SaaS, AI being baked into those products, and then I probably see something similar to FedRAMP, for those AI-enabled SaaS products, to where there is some level of confidence from government to use those products.
Yeah, the FedRAMP process is somewhat tedious and fairly long, but extremely important when it comes to ensuring that what goes into the government ecosystem is fully vetted. So that's important. There's a ton of questions coming in, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to cherry pick a couple right away. Hamid Nasser asks, what are the best ways for small and medium-sized contractors to compete with large firms using AI? And I'm going to take a very, very brief shot at this. Small companies need to differentiate. So you have to focus on a primary area of expertise and then maybe one or two tertiary areas of expertise, but they have to be related. Then start your research on that and build out a content platform that's going to differentiate you. That's, a message that I've been shooting out for ages, but it doesn't answer the AI side of this. You can do some of the research with AI, but Alex, you run a small business. How can you leverage AI to compete with larger companies for your company?
Well, my business is very small, so I rarely, we rarely bid on contracts as primes. It's really, we're participating as subs on proposals and capture activities. But I can definitely see AI, and I've already used it to, make myself more productive and be able to have more pokers in the fire, if you will. But if you're a capture manager for a large integrator and you're handling a multi-billion-dollar solicitation, then obviously potential is huge to streamline, and not only streamline but really, and this is also true for small businesses, to be able to respond to more solicitations, and that's inevitable. Which, not to kind of change the subject, but one other interesting area is going to be when enough GovCon businesses start leveraging AI and become more proficient and are able to respond to a larger number of solicitations. How is government going to handle this? Because it's sort of, how are they going to arm themselves to be able to process now 10x number of proposals coming contract officers' way, right? Well, they're going to have to either hire more people or employ a similar technology on their end. So that's another interesting angle. It's probably coming our way.
Yeah, there's an interesting comment from Leighton Holcomb. Established AI ML talent is more than aware of the vertical adoption. If the DoD IC space balks at bringing in these solutions, cleared talent will continue to offering their skills to the private sector. I do a census of LinkedIn every year, and the way I do this is by identifying very niche parts of DoD that have company pages on LinkedIn. I can tell you that the uniformed services have a vested and obvious interest in the use and deployment of AI just by seeing some of the offices that are opening up company pages and starting to share a little bit of information through LinkedIn. And they're recruiting people. But the thrust of what Leighton says is true. If there's an apparent lack of interest in the near term or immediate deployment of these tools, the most talented people are going to go to industry. Thoughts?
100%. Leighton's right. And again, that's why we're here, because this is inevitable. And you and I have these conversations a lot, Mark. The government is like a warship, like an aircraft carrier. To turn around takes a long time. Okay, it's not like myself or Alex. We run small companies. We can pivot. We can move. It takes time, and that's why we're here. We need to really help this learning curve, and we need to help with small things that really have an impact. And something I wanted to say that's a little bit digressing, but everybody here, I want you to know, AI hallucinates. Every AI hallucinates, not at every point, but AI hallucinates. What does that mean? If an AI cannot find information, AI invents information. So for the government, for GovCons, what we do and what you must do is you have to close a knowledge center, and we got to protect it. And the AI must work only on that data. And we got to educate the AI that if it doesn't have the right answers, it does not invent the right answers. So that's another small step of the security stuff. You can't use open AI, you can't use open databases, you can't use the internet. You need to secure data in order for the AI to use it. So I know I digressed a little bit, but I hope that that helps, Mark.
Okay, Daniel, I want you to take Eileen's question regarding hiring a professional proposal advisor writer who's using AI. If you would be so kind as to read that quickly and respond.
Yeah, so great questions here, Eileen. If you hired a professional proposal writer who is using AI, which means that your intellectual property is being run through it, do you think the proposal professional should ask their client if they can use it? And then let me get the full question here.
It's a long one.
Yeah, if they can use it, using it will bring their rates down, but not using it will bring their proposal investment up. So basically, it'll cost more money. Thoughts on this if someone is a professional? So, I mean, so Eileen, a couple things here. Number one, the intellectual property being run through AI is not necessarily a problem. If it is, like Zev said, in a box and secure, hosted on your own servers, and built in a custom way, a custom GPT that isn't connected to open source, then sharing your IP with it doesn't matter. It's secure, it's protected, it's owned by you, then you have that expectation of security and privacy. In terms of the cost, at that point, it really comes down to, what's the advantage of having the proposal writer do it manually? And the only effect of that is a higher cost. So a comment that you left earlier, I'll kind of bring that in here to finish answering. And that is, people have come to you and said, oh, don't hire a writer, just use AI. And that's just not a good pitch. You still need that proposal writer. AI will simply make that writer more effective. 80% less cost, and that's the benefit of AI. It's not a replacement. It's not an A to Z tool. It won't do everything, but it will get you 80% closer. So my answer to that would be, you have your proposal writer use AI in a secure environment, and then the IP becomes a non-issue, and you're saving 80%. And now your proposal writer can respond to like 5 times the amount of RFPs, and it's just way more efficient. So I hope that answers your question, Eileen. Keep them coming. These are great.
Yeah, there's a ton of questions coming in, and we do have a section at the end. But before we get to trying to answer as many questions as possible, I'm going to start with Alex. Alex, where do you think the government is going next? What's going to happen with AI in GovCon? Will there be near-term activity? Obviously there will be, but give me an idea of what it's going to look like.
Well, it's going to depend on, I mean, there have to be some laws on the books, right? I mean, the legislation will have to emerge, and then based on that, as I mentioned previously, that will drive rules and regulations at the agency level. Once that gets fleshed out, I think government will start looking at best ways to leverage existing investments, and that goes back to bundling and SaaS, and leveraging AI in that way, but also building custom solutions. So, for instance, if there is an annual inventory, or assessment, or something that requires interaction with users or other systems within the networks, and obviously AI can be used to address those questions. There is a census about system inventories in terms of software and otherwise. Instead of doing that manually, a model could be built where a user automatically interacts with it, data is logged, and made available to the application. So it's going to depend. Obviously, those custom solutions, as they get proposed, the security piece will have to be pretty explicit to give government comfort level. Again, depending on what the rules and regulations are, those security pieces for those solutions will have to be cognizant of that and speak to it. But I don't think we're there yet. And again, we may be, and I'm just not aware, but it's definitely just beginning.
Okay. I want to switch a little bit on that question. You answered from, how government's going to use it. What are some criteria for industry adopting and deploying? And I'll start with Daniel, then go to Zev.
Man, so in terms of adoptions, I think this really just loops back to the importance of custom tools. If you haven't built it specifically for your use case and isolated that, adoption is going to be awfully hard. And there's no way that you're going to end up getting the results you want. And I think that's why AI has gotten a bad rap and become somewhat of a red flag. Let me kind of take a step back from this and just go over a couple specific examples for GovCons in particular that I find interesting. Zev, do you mind if I share a little bit about that Israeli company that we're okay? So for example, there's been a lot of talk about the RFP responder, so I'll kind of start there and build on it. But when we want to apply this, we pick one process that is already proven, already works, and then we use AI to bolster that. And so like proposal writing, it's one very small part of the puzzle. And so we're currently in conversations with an Israeli company that builds power plants, right? And they have project managers that are struggling to keep tabs on all the moving parts. And our AI helps with everything from staffing, contractors, project management, scheduling, making a vastly complex project just a little bit less complex. And by no means is this magic or A to Z. It just makes it a little bit less complex. And that's like, for instance, on the fulfillment side with the RFP responder, we can take RFPs in and print out, 80% finished response, and then your team goes through and QCs it. Again, not a complete replacement of your writers or anything like that, or a replacement of your project managers on the fulfillment side, but we'll find one area that AI can step in and automate these tasks. And I think that's the key to adoption, is to find just one use case that really is low-hanging fruit and can make a big difference. And it's got to be a process that already works. AI is not going to come in and just fix a process that currently is broken. Zev, what would you add to that?
So love what you're saying. So basically, AI can help you with what you're good at, can help you with what your expertise are in. So if your company does something really, really well, I can assure you that AI will make you more efficient, more effective, and probably drive a lot more revenue. If you're trying to put AI on something you don't know how to do, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail miserably. And that's something we've seen over and over and over and over again. AI is a technology. Eileen said this best. Eileen, you're our star today. Said this best. It's just a tool. It's an amazing tool, but it's just a tool. So talking about the example of what we're doing with the Israeli company, in order to make that happen, we needed to study for 3 months on every RFP they ever received, answered, on what they want to do, what they need to do, their teams, their talents. So it's not just about shoving something into an AI. You gotta build your custom AI that is built on you, on your knowledge base, and all of that takes time, takes budgets, takes investment. So right now in the market, the people who are looking ahead, they're investing in this because they're bringing on these agents that will work for them for years. The people that are trying the cheap solutions that are just off the shelf, they may help in a small way, but they hurt more than they help. Now, let's talk a little bit about the RFP process. RFP process, 2 things we found with companies. 1, we can enhance how many RFPs they can actually answer. And 2, we can actually enhance how much they can actually receive. So we can enhance both ways. Now, you don't need entry-level people, but you totally need the expert writers, because that's what the AI is going to enhance and learn from. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yeah, it makes a tremendous amount of sense. Without that institutional knowledge, AI is not going to generate something that is apropos for a specific request from government.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think the point here is that, the organizations, whether it's private industry or agencies, the ones that do a better job of aligning their business processes or internal processes to AI so that they can be improved through AI. I mean, they're going to have a leg up and be able to implement this technology faster.
Yeah. Jumid Khan asks, the big question is it possible to integrate AI with blockchain to achieve more security? If yes, how? Not my question. So who wants to go first?
I'll take
Jeff.
that one. So, June, you are a smart man, my friend, and I didn't want to dive into it actually on this one, but I truly believe that blockchain is the solution for a lot of the AI problems, and I truly believe blockchain and AI go together. Our firm Viacry is actually an AI blockchain firm. So, what is blockchain? I don't want to bore everybody. Blockchain is a technology that is basically transparent and secure. So, if you move AI, and it's happened already on a couple of occasions. And I think, who was it? ICP. Again, I don't want to digress. ICP just ran a whole AI process on their blockchain, but blockchain is a solution to close, secure the AI. June, I'd love to talk to you more about it, but you are absolutely right. This is the future. Blockchain will secure AI.
Yeah, I want to highlight, put up Eileen's last comment. So people in the field bring specific win knowledge and themes back to the RFP, AI team, whatever. This is incredibly important. If responding to the RFP is one thing. Getting ahead of it is how you win business in government. So your business development process has to be integrated into this. That IP has to go into shaping your response to absolutely anything, including if you're subcontracting or prime. So thoughts on that? I'll go to Alex because you're there frequently.
Yeah, sure. Of course, AI, as we all mentioned at different points today, is very useful, and especially in that first step, right? The RFP is released, and so now you have to, provide those generic responses to make sure that everything's addressed, and that's pretty straightforward. But to Eileen's point, the important information nuggets that you still have to go out there and research, or maybe some history with the particular client and reasons why you ended up second and not first the last time around, and any number of other important data points. That is something that would have to be done later, or in the next iteration of the proposal. How much of that can be built into language model and make and enable AI, equipped proposal tool or a software to go beyond just making sure that the response is formatted properly and addresses all the clauses in the RFP. That's the question I can't really speak to, but it's certainly something that I'm sure Daniel and Ziv can. Talking about customer agents, I think that's a perfect example. And how do you then manage them? Say if you're a bigger company and you have multiple proposals going, do you have multiple models, one per agency and one for specific set of NICE codes, combination thereof? It's a very interesting discussion, but I really don't have enough knowledge to go beyond that.
Yeah, and I think a really good example to kind of add to that, Zev, we actually did this on one of our other live events. We asked ChatGPT to just make us a month-long schedule for our team. No information. That was the prompt. And it created a very detailed, intricate piece of garbage that laid out it week by week, every employee. It even gave them fictitious names. And that's something about AI that can be dangerous, is that on the surface, at first glance, it looked great. It was detailed. It had everything you could ever want in a schedule, down to the last detail. And that's awesome, but it's useless. Now, And maybe we can do this on a live. If you tell it every name of your team member, their areas of speciality, Zeb, we even do this internally. You could tell it it's each employee's, EQ and emotional intelligence skills, their personality, what their job is, their hours, and you start to fill in this information in the knowledge base. And then you can also build in the knowledge base with what the project is that you're trying to achieve. And then after that is done and the AI has everything that it needs, then if you prompt it, write me a month-long schedule for this project, what it will produce is going to be night and day different. It will be incredibly detailed. And again, it's not an A to Z. You still have to execute it. You still have to get your team. But now as a manager, you can look and you have a complete map to how you're going to lead your team to execute the project, 30% more effectively than without AI. So anything to add, Zev?
Most people don't give AI enough information, don't give an AI enough context. And I do great with AI because I speak to an AI like I would speak to an engineer. To whom of you know me, I'm not an engineer. But when I explain things to my engineers, I know I need to speak in a certain way. This is exactly the way I speak to an AI. Okay, so an AI needs three things that most of us don't give it. And I'm talking about any AI, of course, the ones that we build, Daniel. But the AI needs to know what hat you want the AI to wear. Okay, how do you want the AI to answer? So answer as an emerging technology expert or a LinkedIn, whatever it is. Then the AI needs to know what you are trying to achieve and who you're trying to talk to. So what is your goal and who is the target market? Okay, then the AI needs to have enough information. So the third thing is I always ask the AI, what can you ask me to make sure you have enough data to do this correctly? What you said, Daniel, is very powerful, and a lot of young people fall for it. You create stuff with AI, it looks amazing, but if you really dive into it, it is an amazing pile of garbage. Okay, that is just what it is. And people don't realize it, and people don't read enough, so they do these things on AI, they send them, and they have no value. So please dive into what you're doing and understand that if you don't get it, it's not a good thing. If you don't understand the whole process, you can't have AI do it. You need to give AI exactly what the steps are and what victory means for you.
And a small snippet for those of our listeners who maybe are just now trying to play around with AI. One of the things that completely changed my view of AI and how I use it is just this one simple thing: ask the AI what it needs from you, just like you would talk to an engineer. Say, hey, Chat GPT, I am trying to accomplish X. Give me a list of questions that you would need answered or questions that you would ask me in order to best give me X. And then it's going to spit out a long, long list of questions, some that you wouldn't have even thought of. Answer those questions, give it back, and then prompt it to give you X. And the results are going to be night and day from any prompt engineering you could try to do on your own. So just ask it.
That's absolutely correct. One caveat there is, some GPTs are offered for free, and your prompting will get cut off, after several questions. So if you have an OpenAI account and you're doing it there, whichever GPT-4 or 3.5, you can go in depth and you can be very direct in your prompts and really get valuable information. But if you're using let's say a Copilot, the free version, or another GPT option that limits the number of prompts or tokens that you can really leverage within a session, then sometimes you may kind of run out of questions, and that's just something to keep in mind.
Just remember something. Whatever you put into OpenAI, you are no longer the owner of. So this is also very important. I love what you said, Daniel. But if the AI then is going to ask you questions that are proprietary information about your company, and you're going to feed that into OpenAI or Gemini or any of these open sources, that is the wrong thing for you to do. So we need to limit our use of OpenAIs. I use OpenAIs all the time, every day, okay? Everybody who knows me knows that. But I will never put proprietary information. If I do that, I'll use one of our closed systems. So everybody, anything you put in there can and will be used against you. So just understand that, you can't just give up all your work just to put it into an open AI because they will use it.
Let's start wrapping up with Eileen's latest question, please. Do you ever see AI replacing sales activities and relationships? There's a couple of things I want to say here before you guys chime in. Number one, for over a decade, government executive and market connections have done a brand equity study, and visibility and credibility are key to winning business. From about 2005 through the late teens, I spoke at APMP, the Association for Proposal Management National Capital Conference, every year. And the main issue there was always the client doesn't know us. Well, AI is not going to replace sales or BD in either of these situations. You have visibility and credibility because of the content you put out there that's germane to the client and the relationships your field salespeople and your business development people are creating. That's the core of winning business. AI is an overlay on this. Your final thoughts on that, please. Alex, we'll start with you.
Well, I would absolutely agree with you, Mark, and or you can maybe take a darker outlook of where we're going in terms of technology and perhaps envision a day where things may change. But things within our lifetimes, I hope you're right. So I'm with you, Mark.
Daniel?
So I'll try and keep this brief because I could spend 2-3 hours talking about the use of AI in sales and marketing. It's particularly exciting to me. But Eileen, I want to hone in on one thing that she brought up, and that is asking questions. People asking questions. How do you handle this? Now, certainly from a customer service side of things, I am personally looking forward to it. Not being 40th in the queue anymore, but having an AI pickup that has all the answers to my questions immediately. That's one application. But in terms of being like a sales rep or face of your company, answering questions, AI is absolutely going to be able to do that. Whether it's in a web-based form, whether it's video, audio only. We have chatbots right now that are doing things like that, chatbots that will act as a sales agent. While I don't think much of this pertains to GovCon or some of the higher ticket B2B spaces,
Definitely does.
we created a video and audio version of our COO, Ian. So you can type in a question, and then Ian's voice and his face on video is an AI version of him will answer your question for you. And so, absolutely, I think AI will have that ability, and some people are already leveraging it. It is kind of the cutting edge right now, and I'm really curious to see where it goes. Zev?
So
Zev,
Eileen,
final word.
Yeah, final word. Eileen, I love this question, and this is what everybody needs to think about. AI is not going to replace anything, but if you have a good salesperson and you give him to us, we can make him 10x because we can make it all work together. It's not going to replace BD, but it is going to 10x BD. You have a choice right now with AI. You either leave it alone and continue doing what you're doing, or you look at what you do best and AI can 10x that. So AI has a huge role in BD, not to replace the salesperson or the relationship, just to bolster and make sure that it happens. If you can have your best relationship salesperson send, I'm just saying, 5,000 texts every month in his voice with his charm, just checking on his clients, is that going to be helpful for you? So I'll stop there, Mark. But thank you for the question, Eileen.
Thank you for the questions, everybody. Thank you, Alex, George, Daniel Tappan, and Zev Wexler for inviting me to participate today. This is recorded, so if you missed any part of it, look at Zev's profile on LinkedIn to get the latest link.
Before we finish, everybody please follow Mark. Mark, you've been like a beacon of information in my professional career. We've been working together for a long time. Thank you for coming. Everybody here, please follow Mark. Alex has the best community of GovCons on LinkedIn. Please follow and connect with the community. And everybody who has questions, Daniel is always here to answer. And Mark, thank you so much for doing this for us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Absolute
Thanks, guys.
pleasure. Thank you for having me.